Merry Christmas. By the time you watch this, it will not be Christmas, unless I do some amazing editing today and get it up today. But I wanted to do a little supplemental Christmas video while my editor is working on the last convention I did, and I have plans to be a little bit more regular with my schedule. I have a backlog of about a year and a half worth of conventions that have just not been getting done. So those should all be coming in the new year, plus some new adventures that I plan to partake on. But for now, I wanted to talk about books, specifically YouTubers. Now, it seems to be contractual that once you get so many YouTube followers, you need to do a book. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad. You're never going to see me running out to get somebody's poetry book. And if you're under the age of 24, hell, if you're under the age of 30, you really should not be writing an autobiography, because in my opinion, you cannot possibly have that much to say. If you are a YouTuber writing a autobiography when you're like 25 or 22 or whatever. You can't imagine that you have anything to say at that age. I certainly didn't have anything to say at that age. Anyway, so here are 4 YouTube books. Followers, people that I follow or I tangentially follow or whatever, that have done books that I have actually wanted to get and that I've gotten and just absolutely loved or at least enjoyed. The first one I'm going to talk about is Max Miller's Tasting History. That's also the name of his YouTube channel, is Tasting History. I love his stuff. I love the history behind it. I have the stupidest, smallest galley kitchen. There's no counter space. Once the microwave and the Keurig and like one other thing got onto our counter here, it was like, oh, well, counter space is gone. So in all likelihood, I'm probably not going to make any of his stuff once I finally get his book, because I just don't have the counter space to really make much of anything. But I love history, and I got a background in history, and honestly, I would probably read his book just for the history, and it'd be nice to just have some of those recipes. And when I finally get it, probably for my birthday, it will definitely have, I'm hoping, at least one that I can make in my itty-bitty little kitchen. But moving on from Max and his food is the next one I wanted to talk about. I got this today for Christmas. So this is American Duchess's Guide to 18th Century Dressmaking, and it's got a lot of really fabulous patterns and information on the dresses and how to sew them and the history and all of that. This has been sitting on my Amazon wish list for ever. I put it on after watching another YouTuber talk about an American Duchess event that they went to and mentioning the book. And I love sewing and crafting and all those kind of books and dressmaking and costuming. So when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, that sounds really interesting. I want that book. So I put it on to my Amazon wish list, and it sat there for a really long time. No shade to my family, but I think this is common with a lot of people, and not just my family, is people look at wish lists and they don't go all the way down. They're just like, well, if it's at the bottom of the wish list, somebody's probably already bought it. Which is not true. Things end up on the bottom of a wish list for a lot of reasons, and Amazon won't show you something that's already been bought. Anyway, not the point. Anyway, my mom got this for me for Christmas, and I was super excited. Because one of the contributors to this book, Abby Cox, is a YouTuber, and my mom loves Abby Cox. I like her okay. She's not I follow her kind of tangentially. I'll watch her stuff from time to time, but I'm not a super fan. She recently did a video that was about how publishing is mirroring fast fashion. And in that, she talked about making this book. And that's when I realized she was one of the authors of this book. Her name's right there. Oh my God, I did not know. Like, it had not dawned on me that she was part of American Duchess or anything like that. Never dawned on me. So until I saw this video, and that was probably about a month back or a couple weeks back, I came to her through this next book. So I follow Bernadette Banner because I also like sewing and drafting and costuming and all of this. And Bernadette does a lot of stuff where she will show you how she is hand sewing stuff because she hand sews. I love to hand sew. 9 times out of 10 it's because I'm too lazy to get my actual sewing machine out and set it up and actually sew, so I will hand sew. And sometimes it's stuff that I just have to hand sew. I'm currently in the process of losing a lot of weight right now, and so I am always taking in all of my pants or hemming them. In the case of my last job, they gave me a pair of pants that were so long, like supermodels would have had to hem these pants. It was insane. So I loved all of that. So she did a Make, Sew, and Mend is the name of her book, which I absolutely love. It's traditional techniques for sustainable maintenance and refreshing of your clothes. And I love that because there have been a couple of times where it's like, oh, I remember that she had said something about backstitching. It's probably in the book. So I'll race out to the book and I will find the section on whatever stitch that I want to address. And let's see. So like this one here is, this one's kind of like a backstitch. And she'll show you how to like backstitch it, which I love. And I love learning just new sewing techniques and new ways to do things. I learned about a stabilizing stitch, that it doesn't attach to anything. It just kind of like zigzags and it stabilizes the fabric so it doesn't move when you sew it. If you're a costumer, you totally get that. You buy all sorts of fabrics that will just like stretch and move. It takes a little bit longer, but if you do this stitch, it just stabilizes the fabric and the fabric doesn't move because the thread that you have just stitched prevents it from moving around. And so I've done that a couple of times to really help me when I'm making a costume for somebody that is like spandexy and can move. I will serge it around the edge with my serger, but then I'll do this stabilizing stitch. I will insert that as soon as in the video because I can't remember what it is right now, but I'll do that stabilizing stitch and oh my God, it just stops the fabric from moving. And the stitches, it's a big stitch. So at the end, you just sort of snip the end and like slide it all out and it doesn't really affect the fabric or anything like that. It's great. So I just loved her book. And highly recommend, especially if you're into costuming. And this is my favorite book, probably of all time. I read the Boy Wizard series when it came out, and I was obsessed with it at that time. I showed up to midnight book releases. I devoured the books and then reread them as soon as they came out. But this book is different. And this YouTuber is different because she did not do what other people have done where they get a following and then they release a book. She was already, my understanding is, she was already in the process of writing and selling this book when she started her YouTube channel to rant about the live adaptation of Mulan. Now, I'm not going to butcher her name. Her last name is Zhao, but Zhao Zhao Li Zhao. I pronounced that wrong, but I did meet her at Comic-Con, so I got to tell her about my feelings on this book. I've had this book since it came out. I pre-ordered it. I am this far from being done, because I got to a point where I knew that there was going to be another book in the series, and I was so in love with this book, I didn't want it to end. I enjoyed so much of it. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the situations. I enjoyed everything, and I just absolutely did not want Iron Widow to end at all. So I stopped reading. And the next book is supposed to come out next year, early next year, or it's already out. I can't remember. So I have to buy that, but so good. Like I said, it was so good I stopped reading. I've never had a book so good that I have stopped reading. Even the Boy Wizard series, even Percy Jackson and the Olympians, all these book series that are in the same vein. I read all of the Divergent series. I read all of the Hunger Games series. All of these books, none of them made me stop because I didn't want it to end. I loved them. I plowed right through them, thought they were great, but this is the first book I've ever owned where I have literally stopped because I didn't want it to end. And I haven't touched it. It's been over a year at this point since I stopped because I didn't want it to end, and I still haven't picked it up to finish it. I highly recommend her. I recommend every one of these people's YouTube channels. I will have a link in the description for everything. I recommend the books. That's why I have them. Or in the case of Max, I will be buying it. Iron Widow, just hands down my favorite. It's about a female mech pilot. Think kind of Pacific Rim, where it's like two mech pilots that pilot it together. And she is just this amazing, like strong feminist, like badass. And the people, and she even elevates the people around her in the book, which I find really amusing. She's got by the end of the book, she's kind of got like two boyfriends, or towards the end of the book, she's got like two boyfriends. And they're all, it's like this throuple thing. It's really cool because like she makes people around her want to be sort of better. At least these two guys she makes want to be better. There are people around her that are just assholes and aren't going to be better, but hopefully they'll die at the end of this book or in the next one. But yeah, these are just all YouTubers that have put out phenomenal books that I've absolutely loved. There are other YouTubers that I follow that have put out books that I just, for whatever reason, like the description didn't sound good, or like Maven of the Eventides. I love her stuff. But I read the description of her book, I saw a review of her book, and I still it just didn't sound interesting to me. I mean, it sounded like an interesting concept, but it didn't sound like something that I would finish reading. And I'm a very slow reader, so I have to really be engaged to like kind of complete a book, because if the book isn't super engaging, given how slow I read, I can be reading a book for a really long time, and if I'm not engaged in it, really, really engaged in it, that long time is going to feel like 5 times longer than like the average reader. There are people in my family who just breeze through books, can read them in an evening. I can't. I am very upfront in the fact that I learned to read fairly late in in childhood. I was in the 8th grade. I was a teenager by the time I learned to like read. And so for me, reading is a lot of effort. That's why I'm so slow, is because I have to be deliberate, because if I go too fast, I won't understand anything that I've read because the words will just blur together. And so, like, Maven of the Eventide's book sounds really interesting, but it also doesn't sound like something that I would normally pick up and read. Same thing with Daniel Greene. He's got a series out. Crimson Rogue did a review of it, and he was pretty glowing about it. But again, it's just not something, it just didn't sound something interesting that I would read. When Iron Widow was described as like Pacific Rim meets something else, or Avatar, I think, something like that, was how it was initially described. And I was like, well, I love Pacific Rim. I thought that was great, even if the only people that liked it was the Asian market and myself. But I thought it was great. And it just sounded like a really great book series. And because I'm not a super strong reader and it takes me a long time, I tend to read like young adult novels and that sort of range of stuff, because I find it's just easier for me to read. I save the really hard stuff for when I read like nonfiction books, and history and stuff. Those are the ones that I usually save for my real, like, my energy, because they're harder for me to read, so they take more energy. And when I do something for fun, I'm generally not picking up like an adult sci-fi book, because those tend to be harder for me to read. But anyway, these are all I'm rambling, sorry. These are all really great books. I highly recommend all of them. I'll have links in the description. You can buy them all from Amazon. I know, because I bought this one from Amazon, this one from Amazon, and I know this one came from Amazon. And I know Max's book comes from Amazon as well. And I will also put the 2 down for Daniel Greene and Maven of the Eventides. Because, well, I didn't particularly find the descriptions interesting. You probably will. We are all just different people and we like different stuff. So, yeah, that's my Christmas video for all of you. Please go out and read. Pick up good YouTuber books. There are definitely YouTubers out there that are putting out books and putting hard work into them. Check those books out. Hi, quick editing note here. I forgot to mention another YouTuber that put a lot of hard work into it. I know, because she's done videos about it. Jill Bearup has written a novel called Just Stab Me Now, which is a fantasy heroine and her writer talking as the book is being written. It's conceptual. Go to her website in the description, or her YouTube page in the description, and go check her book out on Amazon. It looks like it's going to be really good. And she is self-publishing, so we definitely need to support that. Thank you. Back to the video. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year. Have a great day. Like and share if you feel so inclined. And I will see you in the next video.